Hello, everybody. I just wanted to be able to send you a quick video, make a quick video to be able to tell you a couple different things. One, I'm trying to talk about the new unit that we're doing, and secondly, I want to be able to focus on. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I want to talk to you about the new unit that we're doing, but I also want to be able to focus on the first lesson topic for those of you that are absent today. And I'm going to tell you two different ways to get to the unit because I know some people have trouble navigating the website. So first of all, you don't need anything on the physical education page in fall of 2020. So you can ignore that banner. Both of these banners, actually these banners and Google Classroom, are all up at the navigation bar. So if you're looking up at the top right now, they're all up in the navigation bar. And there's great information on the phys ed page too, but we're not in phys ed class yet. We're in only health for fall of 2020. So one way you can get to the units is to click the main health banner. That takes you to the actual health course page. The current unit, unless I forget to put it, is usually right here under current unit. And then you can be able to get there that way. Consequently, you can also just go to the top. You don't really need to worry about this if you read it once. It's just pretty much just telling you what the site's about. But if you go up to the navigation bar, you don't want to click on home because that'll go, if you click on the home button, it takes you back to the main page, and then you can email me, read about me, or email Mr. Doyle. But then if you go to the health education page, you see all the different units. Our current new unit is mental and emotional health. So to click on the main unit, you click right on it, and it takes you to the main unit page. Once you're on the main unit page, up at the top here, and I'll annotate that with a circle so you can see, up at the top here, there's a table of contents. The table of contents will allow you to jump to different sections of this page. And it'll allow you to jump to see what's on here now. This little section that says self-harm is supposed to be another topic page. It's just on there by accident. So I will fix that in a little while. But for now, you're seeing it on the video. It won't be there when you go to the class on class. But anyway, so I can scroll down and read a unit overview, which is important. I can read my special disclaimer. And then I can see other topic pages for this unit or unit assignments. Now, let's say that I just want to go down to the assignments right away. I click unit assignments and it takes me down to that section. So in order to get to the other topics, you have two choices again. So first choice is to get down to the section that says other topic pages for this unit, and it lists all the topics here. Or the other one is to click the down arrow, and then you can see all of the other topics. For this unit, typically it lasts a long time. It lasts about 6 weeks altogether, typically. Sometimes it goes 5 weeks, but when we're in a class, traditional class together, in pandemic world, we're going to shorten it and leave out some topics. So for example, even though these are out of order, we have stress and stress management and emotions, feelings, and expressions. We're gonna focus on those two main topics over the next 2 weeks. And with emotions, feelings, and expressions, we're going to do an emphasis on the expressions of emotions and feelings. And we're also going to deal with a special emphasis on anger, maybe fear. We might focus a little bit on fear too. So we're going to do a special emphasis on anger and talk about how anger by itself is not a negative, but is something that can be used if channeled correctly. So we'll do a separate video specifically about the basics of anger, but there's some other topics here, that mental illness, which includes a special emphasis on depression, self-harm, and suicide awareness and help. And to very, very quickly say that those three things are super important when we're talking about mental and emotional health unit, but those are things that sometimes students are sensitive with. It's important to be able to understand them. At this age, in 11th grade, in this school, a lot of you have experience learning about these things already. sometimes, unfortunately, your education about them is only based on what you've read on the internet and social media. And although this is a website which would give you information about those topics, it's still the possibility that what you've read is not correct. What you read might be promoting. There's a lot of really good information nowadays within the last 5 years for sure, but within the last 10 years, talking about positive awareness of the unfortunate epidemic of suicide. Please remember that it's the second leading cause of death for people ages 14 to, I believe, 35. You can look at the data from our second health class when we were talking about the top 10 leading causes of death in the United States. Even though the percentages are relatively low in terms of things, even 1% of the population is terrible. A 0.5% of population is terrible. If you have 100 people, even one person that attempts that that's a devastating number, and we don't want anybody to be able to try that. So education and information has gotten much better over the last several years. I have strategically chosen, after having a conversation with Mr. Doyle, who's the other health and phys ed teacher at our school, to not directly teach during class about these topics. I am not going to be able to control if the topic comes up, but I'm not going to directly teach about these topics this year while we're in pandemic world, and it's an only virtual setting, mostly because I won't be able to be there to physically or symbolically hold your hand or put my arm on your shoulder or show you support or get you additional help with Miss Center or Nurse Judy or something if you have a breakdown. You may always be excused from classes that we do about this. So what I probably am going to do is either have one day about the topic, or I'm going to be having an optional health lesson that would either be completely asynchronous on your own time or would be synchronous live, but outside of the regular school day. It would be an optional extra class for those that want to provide their expertise or just be able to learn more about it, to be able to support their loved ones, family, and friends. The topics of mental illness and depression and self-harm and suicide awareness may come up organically in the classes, and we can't control that. But I just wanted to fill you in on those things. So primarily, if you're talking about topics, the top two, stress and stress management and emotions, feelings, and expressions, are the ones we're going to do. Also, consequently, in terms of the unit assignments, we're skipping some of these. For example, the mental illness research project and constructive responses this year, we're not doing. The anger constructive responses, we are doing. The expressions of emotions and feelings, we are doing. That's actually a pretty quick assignment that we do in class. The anger or stress choice projects, we are doing. We are not doing, we are going to suggest that you do the personal stress management application and reflection, but I'm not sure yet if I'm going to require you to turn that in. I probably am going to, but that's just a thought. So in any case, we're not doing some of these. There's also two poems that you're going to see all over the place on this unit. And one of them is Please Listen to What I'm Not Saying. It's a 1966 poem by an author named Charles Finn. Basically talks about someone who's struggling with their emotions and that they're crying out for help. They are suffering from something. It does never specifically identified whether it's an anxiety disorder or depression or mental illness or just daily life pressures. We don't really know, but it's a person who's suffering inside and crying out for help while staying quiet. So that's an interesting poem. There's also an essay testimony about it and its impact since 1966. And then also there's a poem called Hurt, which was turned in last year by one of your peers, by a student. They didn't write it. They found it online someplace else. It's over 300 lines long. They did it as an alternative project to the IM poems for the self unit. And it's over 300 lines. It's an excerpt. So I have the first 6 and the last 20 or so lines to kind of keep it positive. But It's really, really strong and powerful. And I encourage you to read that if you need a little bit of encouragement about dealing with different things. So that said, let's go on to the first unit. So I'm going to look at it through the navigation bar. And the first unit is emotions and feelings. Not first unit, the first week's topic for the unit. So here we go. And on the top, we talk about emotions, feelings, and expressions. And you see this array of young people with all these different facial expressions. They're like real life emojis, the way that they're making these expressions and things. And if you drop down this drop down arrow, really emotions and feelings are a 5th and 6th grade topic. This should not take that long in class. I'm probably going to go much faster. At least I'm going to try to, barring questions or discussion. I'm going to go much faster than I'm going right now when I'm talking about this review, because this is basically a middle school review. Okay, and so there's a graphic here, talks the types of emotions. It's basically the emotions that were targeted in Inside Out minus a few different changes. And there's also a graphic here that I'm going to be able to, I'm going to go and enhance for you. But here's what it comes down to. If I ask somebody the question, are emotions positive or negative? The question is like, well, some are positive and some are negative, and young people always want to be able to focus on some are good and some are bad, and they can't, they're not always that good, or whatever. And this is what it comes down to. All emotions and feelings can be positive or they can be negative. I mean, in future lessons, we're going to examine love, and we're probably going to look at that in the relationships topic, but we're going to examine love. And love, when it's true love, is great, but when love is confused, when you think it's love and it's actually infatuation or obsession, it's not good. It's not positive. That can cause harm too. And you can feel bad because of true love. If something happens to somebody that you really care about, then the love that you find for them and how you feel, how sad you are because of some kind of harm that happened to them, that's not a good emotion, but you wouldn't say that love is bad. So that's a perfect example that I like to share in class. So all emotions, even ones that when you look at can be deemed as negative, they can have an upside to them too. It's a lot more difficult to understand how some of them can be positive. And there's ones that we don't ever want to have, because we strive to feel good and we strive to not suffer. We strive to not be sad. We strive to not be depressed. And I want to point out right now that although it's not on this page specifically, there's a difference between suffering from depression and being depressed. Being depressed is something that you have to figure out and have to be able to overcome. Suffering from depression ends up being a diagnosed clinical illness, mental illness, and it needs to be treated, whether that's chemically with medication or whether it's through therapy. It needs to be treated by outside help. You can't do it by yourself. You can't do it alone. So that's different. They probably should come up with a different name, because they're using a name for an emotion to describe what ends up being a condition. So let's go on to the slideshow and take a look and see what that says. And this is a basic review for students at our school, and it's supposed to be from 5th or 6th grade. But here's the definitions. Emotions are permanent. They're parts of our human self. We have them all. We have all the emotions that we're ever going to need inside of us, but they manifest or cause feelings. So feelings are temporary. They're brought out by events. Generally speaking, they're brought out by external events. Sometimes they're brought out by internal interpretations of events that are different than everybody else. But this in turn causes effects to our body and mind, and the effects manifest themselves into expressions, manifest themselves into actions. So things that we do, behavior. Robert Plutch, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Plutchik, I guess. In 1997, he created a theory stating that that there are 8 basic emotions. And this is a Wikipedia article, but it's cited. It's a cited Wikipedia article, so you could use this for a resource. And other works since his theory has added additional emotions. Well, so Robert Plutchnik's 8 emotions, and he basically thinks that everybody has these 8 basic emotions that cause every other emotion in our body and then in our mind, and then those emotions are what cause all of the feelings that we see and generally feel and generally express. So fear, anger, sadness, joy, all 4 were in the Inside Out movie, by the way. Disgust, surprise, trust, and anticipation. And I'd like to point out that Mr. Plutchnik does say a positive emotion for trust, but remember, all emotions and feelings can be positive or negative, because even the ones that we deem as negative can cite change for the benefit, if that's the case. All right. Robert Plutchnik made this wheel of emotions. It almost looks like an art palette of some sort of different colors. And his wheel of emotions are in the second circle. So if I can annotate those for a second, I'll just put a circle around his circle. So well, it's not really there, but you get the idea. There it goes. So a circle around his circle. So joy, trust, fear, surprise, disgust, anger, anticipation. Those are his ones, and they can cause vigilance, ecstasy, and admiration, terror, blah, blah, blah. They can also cause interest, serenity. And you have to read the article to be able to understand why there's some inside and some are outside, and how some go further outside. And that doesn't really matter for our purposes of our class. The purposes for our class is to recognize that they're there. So including other work of other people, these are the 10 most common emotions. So all of the 8 that he said, but you also have to add a couple more. So you have love, hate, guilt, anger, joy, sadness, depression, disgust, fear, and surprise. So they can be positive or negative. And there's a question mark there, because it is debatable that some emotions don't have a positive side, but we can talk about that more in depth in the chat if you need to, or you can email me back and forth. And when we talk about expressions of feelings and emotions, what makes an expression positive or negative? I didn't mention that part. So that's a key part of our lesson, is what makes an expression positive or negative, right? Negative is harmful or hurtful, and that can be to someone else, something else, or oneself. So if it hurts something or someone, then it's negative. Sometimes a person has a negative expression, behavior, or action that makes themselves feel better, but is still negative. So an example of that could be self-harm. So really, really quick, if you are a person that suffers, cover your ears for 30 seconds. Okay, here we go. A lot of people that practice self-harm, they do it as a coping mechanism. To them, it is what makes it tangible, and it makes them feel better. And that is a really simplistic answer to a much more complicated question. So it is a negative coping strategy, but it is a coping strategy nonetheless. It's not because they don't know how to cope. It's because they don't know how, or don't use the tools that are the positive coping mechanisms. All right, hopefully you're all back now. That was 30 seconds or less. So a positive is simple. It's helpful and it's not harmful to anyone or to anything. So you have a small group assignment, and we'll talk about those. This looks like a play thing. I don't know why it looks like that. It was just an accident. And we're going to give you a small group assignment in class. But before you do that, and I will go back to share the screen again, because I stopped my share by accident, but I'm going to share it one more time. I also want to remind you of some asynchronous work. And the most important thing is to read these 2 graphics. It's okay to not be okay. You know, these are some really big quotes. And a lot of people are like, just get over it. And that's good advice sometimes, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes they need time. Sometimes they need people. Sometimes they need other things. So It is okay. Wow, that just got really big. It's okay to not be okay. You know, we just have to keep in mind that we should be able to have these moments where we fall apart and then find ourselves all over again. Okay. So I'd like to point those things out to you in a positive way. Also, I'd like to point out something that you should have done in advisory classroom. It's the mood meter from Queens, New York public school that the school district kind of stole and used for their own activity. It's been out for a really long time. No, I don't care. They didn't steal it. It's public domain. And it's kind of a mood meter. Where are we falling and where do we want to be? So you find yourself on this thing, whether you're blue or pink or red or kind of going towards yellow and gold or down here at green. Like you find yourself where you want to be, where you are, and then you look and see where you want to be, and then you develop a plan to get there. And that's key. And the way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you got to put up with some rain. That's what Dolly Parton likes to say. So there's another quote for you. On the bottom, there's 2 articles for you to be able to read, and there's several different videos. We're going to show you one in class, which is not on this website due to copyright issues. I can use it live. I can't use it like for paid things, and this is going on YouTube. I don't plan on ever getting paid for it, but still I don't want to violate YouTube's copyright infringement. And there's some videos on the website. This one is called Laughter is Medicine. I highly encourage you to watch it. She's not particularly funny as much as she really talks about what being funny can be helpful as. This is the gifted wisdom of unpleasant feelings. So this is how negative feelings can be used for benefit and can end up being positive. The Power of Sadness, also from Inside Out. If nobody saw that movie, by the way, it is fantastic representation of emotions and feelings that we generally think of as negative being helpful to us. It's really fantastic. Spoiler alert. Don't neglect your emotions, express them constructively. So a lot of us push them aside. Fantastic TEDx video. There's a little clip from Inside Out talking about sadness and how it helps. And then what is emotional expression? It's basically a lecture just like I'm showing you, just like I'm doing right now. But in any case, I totally encourage you to look at those items. If you go down further on that particular page, there's an emphasis on anger, but I'm going to do a different video about that a different day. So at any moment, at any time, I mean, you can be able to email me or comment me for questions. But I hope that this video is helpful for you, and have a great day.